Okay, time to start. Let's talk about clocks. When I started using modular synthesizers, one of the first things that stuck out to me was the use of the word clock. I came from a background of playing instruments like piano, where you're instantiating every note manually, and you might use a metronome to keep in tempo while you're practicing, but mostly you're going to rely on your internal clock to keep the pace. Of course, there are musical performers who are known for their use of clocks on stage, but as far as I knew, their instruments were not controlled by the clock in any direct way. If you think about it, yes, music does conspicuously take place in the onward march of time. When you start playing a piece, you're not going to escape the fact of being older by the time the piece is over. I'm already a few minutes older than I was when I started shooting this video. Most pieces of music don't specify exactly how much older you're going to be at the end, with some exceptions like Satie's, Vexations, or Cage's 433. In the context of a synthesizer, the clock is usually used in what Curtis Rhodes would call the sound object scale and the let's look it up here. Microsound. The sound object and meso scales. Rhodes defines the sound object as a basic unit of musical structure generalizing the traditional concept of note to include complex and mutating sound events on a time scale ranging from a fraction of a second to several seconds. And meso, divisions of form, groupings of sound objects into hierarchies of phrase structures of various sizes measured in minutes or seconds. These are the timescales in which clocks are most perceivable to humans. Even smaller scales are on the level of frequency and timbre. And larger timescales encompass things like your weekend, periods in your musical development, the lifespan of the universe, etc. But let's talk about synths. One thing I like about clocks in modular synths is that they can be absolute or relative depending on how you use them. What I mean by that is, for example, a cycling maths channel creates a clock whose speed can be changed so that a certain amount of time goes by before each pulse. Whereas a clock divider, like tempi, pulses after some number of clocks at its input. Let's actually molt this clock so that we can hear the clock throughout. Setting a tempi channel to divide by 4 and patching it to instantiate an event means, okay, the clock is pulsed 4 times, let's do this. And in the meso scale, within the duration of a performance, we can definitely think of things like the beginnings and endings of sections or of different voices coming in and out as being a function of punctuality in some way. The clock says, okay, it's time. So let's start with a times 4 channel, pulsing 4 times for every clock. We use that to clock the X channel of Renee. And let's use a divide by 2 channel with run stop on the function page to tell it to run for 1 clock and then stop for 1 clock. I'm going to think of this start-stop motion as a meso-rhythm. The ×4 clock creates note events, but it starts and stops based on the longer tempo. The starts and stops are not the same as note events, but they occupy the same time on a different scale. And they're not heard directly like notes, but they're still a tangible part of the sonic field we've created here. Let's go ahead and add the Y channel as well. And we'll clock this at the same rate as X. Let's use fun.cv.add on the Y channel to do a little in-key transposition. We'll use a divide by 6 clock to do this periodically. Let's do it on the X channel too. But instead of this periodic switching, let's use a divide by 8 tempi channel to clock the woggle bug. So that every 8 steps, or rather every 8 clocks, we get a new melodic shift at random. Now we have several overlapping meso-rhythms that are creating a sort of meso-polyrhythm. We can add some variation by shifting the tempi channels. I'm going to shift enable the 3 slower channels here. And we'll use channel 2 at, let's say, divide by 9 to shift them. This should destabilize the repetition of the meso-polyrhythm. We can also use the access pages of Renee to change the total number of locations in a sequence on each channel, and this will create another meso-rhythm if we make these 2 sequences different. The more meso-scale movements we add to the patch, the harder it gets to discern each one. As a synthesist, you get to decide how many layers of rhythm you need, how closely related they should be to each other, how strongly they should reinforce a central beat structure, etc. It's all up to you.